The bride is left at the altar by the groom, but her brother says something that makes everyone tremble. Jessica Parker held the bouquet of white roses so tightly her fingers were beginning to ache. The priest had asked the traditional question, the one she had always imagined was just a formality, and was now waiting for the answer that would seal their union. That's when she felt it. A sudden movement beside her. Nathan, her fiancé, turned his back and began walking toward the church exit. His footsteps echoed in the absolute silence that had taken over the place. "Nathan!" she called, her voice so quiet it was almost inaudible. But he didn't stop. He kept walking, each step faster than the last, until he began running down the central aisle of St. Mary's Church. 200 guests watched in absolute shock as the groom fled his own ceremony. Jessica stood frozen. Her brain refused to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. Not after 3 years of dating, 1 year of engagement, months of preparations. Not after everything she had invested in that relationship. The bouquet slipped from her hands and fell to the floor with a soft sound. "Jessica!" The priest's voice sounded distant, as if coming from another world. That's when her older brother, Michael, climbed the steps to the altar. He took the microphone the priest was holding, and the sound of feedback made everyone shift in their seats. "Wait," said Michael, his voice firm but full of contained anger. "Before everyone leaves here thinking my sister did something wrong, you need to know the truth." Jessica turned her face to look at Michael. His eyes were red, his hands trembling as he held the microphone. "I found something out 15 minutes ago. Something I needed to tell my sister before the ceremony started, but I couldn't get here in time." A murmur began to spread among the guests. Jessica felt her legs weak, as if they might give way at any moment. "Nathan is having an affair." Michael paused, took a deep breath. "With Amanda." A collective gasp echoed through the church. Jessica felt as if someone had pulled the floor out from under her feet. Amanda, her cousin, her maid of honor. "No," she whispered, but the word came out without sound. Michael continued, his voice growing louder. "He's having an affair with her cousin, with the maid of honor who's sitting right there in the front row." All eyes turned to the front row where Amanda was sitting. She jumped up, her face completely pale, and tried to run toward the church's side door. But Jessica's mother, Mrs. Susan, a 70-year-old woman who had always had quick reflexes despite her age, stood up and blocked the passage. "You're not going anywhere," said Susan, her voice sharp as glass. Jessica finally managed to move. Her knees gave way and she began to fall, but Michael ran down the steps and caught her before she hit the floor. "Breathe, sis, breathe." But how could she breathe? How does anyone breathe when they discover they've been betrayed by the person they loved and by the cousin they considered a sister? The tears began to fall, hot and abundant, wetting the fabric of the wedding dress she had so carefully chosen 6 months ago. The simple but elegant dress, with thin straps and a discreet neckline, that Nathan had said was perfect on her. Nathan, who had lied to her all this time. "I can explain." Amanda's voice cut through the air. "It's not what you're thinking." "Then explain," said Michael, still holding Jessica. "Explain to everyone here how you betrayed your own cousin." Amanda was cornered between Susan and other relatives who had stood up to block any escape route. She looked around, searching for a way out, but there was none. We, she stammered. Just say it," shouted an aunt from the back of the church. Jessica lifted her face from Michael's shoulder. She needed to look at Amanda. She needed to see the truth in her eyes. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice broken. "You and Nathan?" Amanda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Tears began to stream down her face too, smudging her carefully applied makeup. "Jessica, Answer!" Michael practically roared. "Yes," Amanda finally said, so softly it was almost inaudible. "Louder," demanded Susan, approaching her niece. "Yes," Amanda shouted. "Yes, are you happy? Yes, Nathan and I are having an affair." Chaos erupted in the church. Shouts, curses, people standing up. The priest tried unsuccessfully to calm everyone down. Jessica felt as if her heart had been ripped from her chest. The physical pain was so intense that she brought her hand to her chest, trying to hold back something that couldn't be contained. "How long?" she asked. Amanda fell silent. "How long?" Jessica shouted with a strength she didn't know she had. 3 years, Amanda whispered. The world stopped. 3 years. The same length of time Jessica had been with Nathan. That meant the affair started even before their relationship began, or maybe at the same time. No. Jessica shook her head. No, this can't be true. Let me explain. Amanda tried to approach, but Susan pushed her back. You will not come near my daughter, said the mother, her finger pointed sternly at her niece. Michael helped Jessica sit in one of the front pews. She was trembling uncontrollably, sobs shaking her entire body. How did you find out? Susan asked Michael. Nathan asked me to charge his phone in the sacristy, Michael explained, still looking at his sister with concern. He said the battery died, and he needed to take pictures after the ceremony. When I plugged in the charger, a message came through. I wasn't going to look, I swear I wasn't. But the notification stayed on the screen. He paused, running his hand through his hair. It was from Amanda. It said, "Are you really going to do this? Marry her?" And there were a bunch of previous messages. I opened it and saw everything. Photos, conversations, plans, everything. Jessica covered her face with her hands. It couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare. Where is the phone? Asked Jessica's father, Robert, who had been silent until then, his face red with anger. Here, Michael took the device from his suit jacket's inner pocket. Robert grabbed the phone and started scrolling through it. With each passing second, his expression grew darker. There are messages here from 2 days ago, he said, his voice trembling. They met at the hotel. At the hotel we paid to accommodate out-of-town guests. A new murmur spread through the church. Jessica looked at Amanda, searching for any sign of remorse, of regret, but her cousin just cried, her face hidden in her hands. You slept with him 2 days before my wedding? Jessica asked, each word costing a piece of her soul. Amanda didn't answer. Look at me, Jessica shouted, rising from the pew. Amanda lifted her face. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was something there beyond guilt. There was defiance, anger, envy. You want to know the truth, Amanda said, her voice gaining strength. Do you really want to know? Amanda, no, Susan warned. No, let her speak, said Jessica, approaching her cousin. I want to hear everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Amanda wiped her tears with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup even more. I met Nathan first, she began. I was the one who introduced him to the family. I was interested in him, everyone knew that. That doesn't give you the right to... Susan started, but Amanda interrupted her. But he didn't want me, he wanted you. Amanda pointed at Jessica. And you know why? Because you're the family's favorite. Because you have Grandma Grace's inheritance. Because everything always came easier for you. Jessica felt as if she'd been slapped. You think everything was easy for me? She asked, incredulous. It always was, Amanda insisted. Ever since we were kids. You were the favorite granddaughter, the perfect daughter. I was always the second choice, the one who lived off her aunt's charity because my mother couldn't raise me alone. Susan stepped forward, but Robert held her arm. Are you blaming Jessica because I took you in when your mother needed help? Susan asked, her voice trembling with emotion. I'm not blaming anyone, Amanda said. I'm explaining. You wanted the truth. Here it is. So you betrayed your cousin out of jealousy? Michael asked, stepping beside Jessica. I didn't plan this, Amanda said. When I introduced Nathan to the family, I really liked him. But he told me he only liked me as a friend. I was devastated. And then, 3 weeks later, he shows up at your birthday barbecue. She looked at Jessica and starts hitting on you. Jessica remembered that day. It was in May, 3 years ago. Nathan had shown up with Amanda, and she thought they were dating. But during the party, he spent a lot of time talking with her. They exchanged numbers and a week later had their first date. You lied to me, Jessica whispered. When I asked if you minded me dating him, you said it was fine. And it was, Amanda said, but her voice wasn't convincing. Or at least I tried to believe it was. When did the affair start? Asked Robert, still holding Nathan's phone. Amanda hesitated. Answer, Susan demanded. 2 months after you started dating, Amanda admitted. He came to me, said he'd made a mistake, that it was me he really liked. I didn't want to at first, I swear I didn't, but he insisted so much. So now you're the victim? Michael practically spat the words. No. Amanda shook her head. I know I was wrong. I know what I did was awful. But you don't understand how hard it was for me to watch you together all these years, to see him kiss you, hug you, plan a future with you, when he was with me every Thursday when he said he had late meetings. Jessica felt her stomach turn. Thursdays. Nathan always said he had meetings on Thursdays. She never suspected. You were going to let her marry him? Susan asked, incredulous. Even knowing all this? I thought he would back out, Amanda said, tears falling again. I thought at the last moment he'd realize it was me he loved, but he didn't back out. He went through with the wedding and I couldn't stay silent anymore. You didn't stay silent, Michael said. You kept seeing him. There are messages here from this morning. Amanda lowered her head. He texted me saying that after the wedding he'd file for divorce in a few months, that he just needed to get the inheritance money and then he'd be with me. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the guests who were still murmuring went quiet. Jessica felt her legs give way again. The inheritance money. So that was it. Nathan never loved her. He only wanted the money she'd inherited from Grandma Grace 6 months ago, $2 million. Her grandmother had left everything to her, the granddaughter who always cared for her in her final years. The money was invested, doing well, ensuring a comfortable future. He only wanted my money, she whispered. It seems so, said Robert, his voice heavy with pain. But I didn't know that at first, Amanda hurried to say. I only found out when Grandma Grace passed away and left everything to you. That's when Nathan started talking about marriage. Jessica looked back at the altar where she should have gotten married minutes earlier. The priest was still there, not knowing what to do. The white floral arrangements decorated the space. The scented candles burned. Everything was perfect for a wedding that would never happen. I need to get out of here, she said suddenly. Let's go. Michael took her by the arm. Jessica, wait. Amanda tried to approach, but Susan blocked her again. You've done enough damage, said the mother. Don't come near my daughter. Aunt Susan, please let me explain to us. Explain what? Susan was visibly shaking with anger. That you betrayed your cousin's trust. That you lived in my house for years while scheming behind our backs. That you agreed to be the maid of honor in this wedding, knowing you were destroying her happiness. Amanda sobbed. I'm so sorry. Your thank you very much won't fix anything, said Robert. Michael, take your sister away from here. Michael began guiding Jessica toward the side door of the church, but she stopped. Wait, she turned to Amanda. Just answer me one thing. Do you really feel any remorse? Or are you just sorry because you got caught? Amanda opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. That's what I thought, said Jessica, and let Michael lead her away. When they left the church, Jessica saw Nathan standing by his car, talking on the phone. When he saw them, he quickly hung up and tried to approach. Jessica, let me explain. Don't come near her. Michael stepped between them. I can explain everything, Nathan insisted, trying to get around Michael. You ran away from your own wedding, Jessica said, her voice finally steady. And now you want to explain? I panicked, Nathan said. When your brother showed up in the sacristy saying he needed to talk to me, I knew he had found out. I didn't know what to do. So you ran, Michael said, like a coward. I'm not a coward. Nathan tried to maintain his composure, but his voice trembled. No? Jessica took a step forward. Then what are you? A man who betrays his fiancée with her cousin, who pretends to love someone just to get money. It's not like that. Nathan ran his hand through his hair. I like you, Jessica. Really. But you like my money more, she finished. Nathan fell silent, which was answer enough. Get out of here, Michael said. "Before I do something I'll regret. I need to talk to Jessica." "You lost that right," Jessica said. "You lost it the moment you kissed my cousin for the first time. You lost it when you kept lying to me for 3 years. You lost it when you agreed to marry me knowing you were doing it all for money." "Jessica." "Go away, Nathan," she said, and her voice was surprisingly calm. "Just go away." Nathan looked at her for a long moment, then got back in his car and drove away. The sound of the engine fading into the distance was like a period at the end of a chapter in Jessica's life. Michael hugged her, and only then did she completely break down. The sobs came from the depths of her soul, years of trust destroyed in minutes. "I was so close," she cried on her brother's shoulder. "A few more minutes and I would have married him. And then when I found out the truth, it would have been too late." "But you didn't marry," Michael said, holding her face in his hands. "Thank God I saw those messages in time." "How didn't you notice before?" she asked, but it wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine question. "He was good at lying," Michael answered. "He fooled everyone. Susan and Robert came out of the church and joined them." The mother hugged her daughter tightly, saying nothing. Sometimes there are no words for the kind of pain someone is feeling. "What do I do now?" Jessica asked. "There are 200 people in there waiting for a wedding. The reception is all prepared, the food, the music." "We'll cancel everything," said Robert. "Don't worry about that now." "But the money?" "We'll figure out the money later," Susan said. "What's important is you." "I need to go home," Jessica said. "I need to take off this dress, clean off this makeup, and pretend this day never happened." "Let's go." Michael guided her to his car. During the drive to her parents' house, Jessica stared out the window without really seeing anything. The streets of Chicago passed by in a blur. People walked on the sidewalks, living their normal lives, unaware of how deeply someone's life could change in a matter of minutes. When they arrived home, Susan helped Jessica take off the dress. Each layer of fabric that was removed seemed to carry away a piece of the dreams she had built. "Did you know?" Jessica asked suddenly, while her mother unbuttoned the dress. "Know about what, honey?" "About Amanda, the way she looked at me, the way she stayed close to Nathan at family parties." Susan sighed. "I suspected," she admitted, "but I wasn't sure. And I didn't want to plant suspicions in your head without proof." "You should have told me," Jessica said, but her voice held no anger, only weariness. "I know." Susan helped her daughter put on comfortable pajamas. "I should have followed my instinct. But I was afraid of being wrong and causing trouble in the family. And now there's trouble anyway." "Now there is," Susan agreed, "but at least you found out before signing the papers." Jessica lay down in her childhood bed, the one she had left 6 months ago to live with Nathan in the apartment they had bought together, or rather that she had bought. His name wasn't even on the deed because he said he couldn't afford half and didn't want her to pay for everything alone. Another lie. He probably wanted to keep things separate to make it easier when he decided to leave with her money. "How didn't I see it?" she wondered aloud. "How was I so blind?" "He was good at hiding." Susan sat on the edge of the bed. "And you loved him." "Love makes us see what we want to see." "I'm an idiot." "You're a woman who trusted the wrong person," Susan corrected. "That doesn't make you an idiot. It makes you human." Jessica closed her eyes, but tears kept escaping beneath her eyelids. She could hear movement in the house. Michael talking on the phone, probably cancelling the reception. Robert arguing with someone, maybe the caterer or the venue. "How much money are we going to lose?" she asked. "It doesn't matter," Susan replied. "Of course it matters. It was months of planning. You spent so much, and it would have been worth every penny if you were happy." Susan stroked her daughter's hair. "But you wouldn't have been happy with that man. Better to lose money now than spend years in a fake marriage." Jessica knew her mother was right, but that didn't ease the pain. The humiliation of being left at the altar in front of 200 people. The betrayal by the cousin she considered a sister. The discovery that the man she loved was only interested in her inheritance. She fell asleep from crying so much, but it was a restless sleep, full of nightmares where she was trapped in a church with no way out, running after Nathan, who always disappeared when she was about to reach him. When she woke up, it was already dark. The clock on the wall showed 11 at night. She had slept for 6 hours. Jessica got up and went down the stairs. Voices came from the living room. As she approached, she recognized the voices of Michael, Robert, and Susan, but there were other voices too. "I just want to talk to her." It was Nathan's voice. Jessica felt her stomach churn. "She doesn't want to talk to you," Michael was saying. "Please, I need to explain." "You've already explained everything you needed to at the church," Mark interrupted. "You don't understand. There are things you don't know." "Then tell us," Susan challenged. "Tell us what else you've hidden from my daughter." There was a long pause. Jessica Parker moved closer to the door, staying hidden in the shadows. "I have debts," Nathan finally said. "What kind of debts?" Robert asked. "With people who aren't the type to accept excuses if you don't pay," Nathan said, and his voice was filled with fear. "Loan sharks," Michael said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Nathan admitted. "I have debts with loan sharks." The silence that followed was heavy. "How much?" Robert asked. 300,000 reais. Jessica put her hand over her mouth to muffle her scream. 300,000 reais. It was a fortune. "How did you manage to owe so much money?" Susan asked, horrified. "Businesses that went wrong," Nathan said vaguely. "Bad investments. Some bets." "Bets," Michael repeated. "Do you have a gambling problem?" "I had," Nathan corrected. "I stopped a year ago. But the debt remained," Robert finished. "And you were going to use Jessica's money to pay," Michael said. Nathan didn't deny it. "They're threatening me," he said, his voice breaking. "They said if I don't pay in 2 weeks." He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew what loan sharks did to people who didn't pay. "And you thought the solution was to deceive my daughter?" Susan stood up. Jessica could hear the sound of the chair scraping. "Marry her, take her money, and then what? Ask for a divorce and disappear?" "No," Nathan said quickly. "I was going to stay with her. I was going to pay the debts and be a good husband." "While still having an affair with Amanda," Michael pointed out. "That was going to end," Nathan insisted. "When?" Robert asked. "When exactly did you plan to end the affair with your wife's cousin?" Nathan stayed silent. "Get out of my house," Robert said. "Now." "I just want to talk to Jessica." "She doesn't want to talk to you," Susan repeated, "and you won't get near her." "But I need—" "Get out!" Robert shouted, and Jessica had never heard her father shout like that. There was movement, footsteps heading toward the door. Jessica heard the front door open and close. She waited a few minutes before entering the living room. Her parents and brother were sitting in silence, processing what they had just discovered. "Did you hear?" Michael asked when he saw her. She nodded. 300,000 reais, she whispered. He owed 300,000 reais. And he was going to use you to pay. Susan approached her daughter. "I feel so stupid." Jessica sat on the couch. "How did I not notice anything? How did I not see that he only wanted my money?" "Because you trusted him," Robert said, "and because he's a convincing liar." "There's one more thing," Michael hesitated. "I didn't want to tell you today, but I think it's better you know all at once." Jessica looked at her brother. "What?" "When Nathan left just now, I followed him to the car," Michael explained. "And I heard him talking on the phone. He was talking to someone about trying Plan B." "Plan B?" Jessica repeated. "He said if he couldn't get the money through marriage, he'd have to get it another way." Michael paused. "He mentioned the apartment you bought. The apartment. That was in her name." "He can't touch the apartment," she said. "It's in my name." "But you live together," Robert said. "Depending on how he plays it, he could claim common law marriage and try to get half the value." Jessica felt panic rising. "No," she shook her head. "No, he can't do that." "He can try," Michael said. "We need to act fast to protect your assets." "Tomorrow morning we're going to a lawyer," Robert decided. "We'll handle this the right way." Jessica spent the rest of the night awake, her mind spinning non-stop. How had her life fallen apart so quickly? Yesterday she was nervous but happy, preparing for the wedding. Today she was a bride abandoned at the altar, betrayed by her fiancé and her cousin, discovering everything had been a sham for money. She picked up her phone and saw dozens of messages, from friends, relatives, co-workers, all wanting to know if she was okay, offering support or worse, asking for details about what had happened. There were several messages from Amanda too. Jessica almost deleted them without reading, but curiosity was stronger. "Jessica, please let me explain properly. I know you're angry, but I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you. I've always loved you like a sister." The messages continued, each more desperate than the last. The last one had arrived 15 minutes ago. "I'm at your door. Please talk to me." Jessica got up and went to the window. Down below, illuminated by the streetlight, was Amanda sitting on the curb in front of the house. Part of her wanted to go down and scream at her cousin, wanted to ask how she had the nerve to show up there after everything she'd done. But another part, the tired and wounded part, simply had no energy left for more confrontation. She closed the curtain and went back to bed. The next morning, Amanda was still there. Jessica saw from the window that her cousin had spent the night on the curb, sleeping, leaning against the lamppost. "She's been there since last night," Susan said, entering the room with a cup of coffee. "Your father told her to leave 3 times, but she won't go." "Let her stay," Jessica said, taking the cup. "I'm not going to talk to her anyway." "We need to leave in an hour," Susan reminded her. "The lawyer expects us at 10. Jessica nodded. She drank her coffee, put on simple clothes, and went downstairs. When they left the house, Amanda jumped up. "Jessica, please!" But Jessica walked right past, getting into the car without looking back. Through the window, she saw Amanda fall to her knees on the ground, crying. Part of her felt sorry, but the wounded part was much bigger. The law office was elegant and intimidating. Dr. William Harrison, a man in his 50s with graying hair, welcomed them into his spacious office. "So," he said after Jessica finished telling the whole story, "we have several matters to address here." He picked up a notepad and began taking notes. "First, the apartment. How long had you been living together?" 6 months, Jessica answered. "And before that?" "Each lived with our parents." Dr. William nodded. "Well, 6 months doesn't automatically constitute a common law marriage, but he could claim it. Did you have joint accounts? Did he contribute financially?" "No," Jessica said. "He lived there, but I paid for everything." "He said he was saving money to invest in his business." "What business?" the lawyer asked. "He said he wanted to open a consulting firm," Jessica explained, "but I never actually saw him do anything to make that happen." "Because he was lying," Michael said. "He was probably using that money he was saving to pay interest on his debts." Dr. William continued asking questions for over an hour, about wedding expenses, about Nathan's finances, about any documents Jessica might have signed. "Did you open a joint account at any point?" he asked. "No," Jessica answered. "He suggested it a few times, but I always preferred to keep my finances separate." "Thank God," Susan murmured. "That's good," Dr. William said. "It makes things much easier. Now, about the wedding. Had you already been to the courthouse?" "We went 2 weeks ago," Jessica said, "to start the paperwork. But the civil ceremony didn't happen." "No. It was scheduled for next week, right after the religious ceremony." "Great." The attorney made more notes. "So legally you were never married. That eliminates several complications." He spent a few more minutes writing, then looked at Jessica. "I'll prepare some documents to protect your assets. I'll also send a notification to Mr. Nathan informing him that any attempt to contact you will be considered harassment." "He has clothes and things in the apartment," Jessica reminded. "We'll coordinate a date and time for him to pick up his belongings with witnesses present," Dr. William said. "You don't need to be there." "Thank you. Now there's one more issue." The attorney hesitated. "The wedding expenses. How much did you invest?" Robert sighed. "Approximately $150,000. Jessica felt her stomach churn. It was so much money wasted. "You can try to recover some from the vendors who didn't deliver the service," Dr. William explained. "But it will depend on the contracts you signed. Most have a no-refund clause, Susan said. "So you probably won't be able to recover much." The attorney was honest. "I'm sorry." When they left the office, Jessica felt exhausted. Every decision felt like an extra weight on her shoulders. "Let's have lunch somewhere," Michael suggested. "You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry." "You need to eat," Susan insisted. "You didn't eat anything yesterday." They went to a small restaurant near the office. Jessica pushed the food around without really eating. Her mind was elsewhere, processing everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. That's when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Jessica?" It was a female voice she didn't recognize. "Who is this?" "My name is Jennifer Wilson. I don't know you personally, but I need to talk to you about Nathan." Jessica exchanged a look with Michael. "What do you want?" "Ooh, I saw the videos on social media," Jennifer said, "of the wedding, and I need to tell you something you need to know." "What videos?" Jessica asked. "You haven't seen them?" Jennifer sounded surprised. "There are videos of what happened at the church. It's going viral." Jessica felt her blood run cold. Videos. People had filmed her humiliation and posted it on social media. "Send me the link," she said, her voice automatic. "Jessica, don't." Michael started, but she cut him off with a look. Jennifer sent the link via message. Jessica clicked and saw her own image on the screen. It was the exact moment when Nathan had turned and started running. She could see the shock on her own face, could see the bouquet falling from her hands. The comments were cruel. Some laughed, others speculated about what she had done wrong. Others defended Nathan, saying he must have had a good reason. "Turn it off," Susan asked, but Jessica had already seen enough. "You said you needed to tell me something." Jessica returned to the call with Jennifer. "Yes," Jennifer hesitated. I was also engaged to Nathan." Jessica felt as if she'd been punched. "What?" 3 years ago, Jennifer explained. "We dated for 2 years and were engaged for 6 months. But he disappeared 2 weeks before the wedding, took $50,000 I had saved for our honeymoon." "No," Jessica whispered. "I never could prove it was him," Jennifer continued. "The money was in an account he had access to. He said it had been stolen, but I always knew it was him." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because when I saw the videos, I recognized him right away," Jennifer said. "And because I don't want you to go through what I went through. That man is a con artist, Jessica. He looks for women with money, wins them over, and then steals everything he can." Jessica looked at the family around the table. Everyone had heard the conversation. "Is there anyone else?" she asked. "Did he do this to more women?" "I know at least 2 others, Jennifer replied. "A colleague of mine went through the same thing, and there's another who tried to report him but didn't have enough evidence." "How did you find these other women?" "After he stole from me, I started investigating," Jennifer explained. "I discovered a pattern. He always goes for successful women, usually those who inherited money or have their own business. He's charming, attentive, makes you feel special, and once he gains your trust, he takes what he can and disappears." "But he didn't disappear with me," Jessica said. "He was going to marry me." "Because you have much more money than the others," Jennifer said bluntly. $2 million is much more than 50,000. It's worth the time investment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The call went on for a few more minutes, with Jennifer giving details about Nathan's behavior, about how he always had excuses ready, about how he manipulated situations to appear as the victim. When Jessica hung up, she felt even more deceived. Nathan wasn't just a man who cheated on her with her cousin. He was a professional con artist who had done this many times before. "We need to talk to Dr. William about this," Robert said. "This changes everything." They returned to the lawyer's office immediately. Dr. William listened to everything and took more notes. "Do you have the contacts of these other women?" he asked. "Jennifer said she can give them to me," Jessica replied. "Good. With multiple victims, it's easier to build a case," the lawyer explained. "We can charge him with fraud." "But I need evidence," Jessica said. "The other women can serve as witnesses," Dr. Williams said. and we have his message history with your cousin, which clearly shows the intention to get money through marriage. In the following days, Jessica met Jennifer in person, as well as Kimberly and Stephanie, the other two women who had been victims of Nathan. Each had a different story, but the pattern was the same. He had approached them when they were in a good financial situation, gained their trust and stolen what he could. He told me he needed the money to invest in a company, Kimberly shared. Said that in 6 months we'd be rich. I never saw the money or him again. With me it was similar, Stephanie said. He said his father was sick and needed money for treatment. I lent him $70,000. 2 weeks later, he vanished. Jessica listened to each story with a mix of anger and sadness. Anger because Nathan had done this to so many women. Sadness because she hadn't been smart enough to notice the signs. How did you get over it? She asked, needing to know there was hope beyond that pain. With time, Jennifer said, and therapy. Lots of therapy. I spent 2 years unable to trust anyone, Kimberly admitted. I still struggle sometimes. But you managed to move on, Jessica said, more to herself than to them. And you will too, Stephanie touched her hand. It will hurt for a while, but you'll get through it. Meanwhile, the situation on social media worsened. New videos appeared every day. Someone had filmed the moment when Michael revealed Amanda's affair. Another video showed Amanda trying to escape and being blocked by the family. There were even pictures of Nathan running down the church aisle. The comments were relentless. Some blamed Jessica, saying she must have done something to make the groom run away. Others laughed at the situation, turning her pain into entertainment. There were even memes being created with images of her standing at the altar. Jessica tried not to look, but it was impossible. With every notification, every message from a friend saying, "Don't pay attention to what they're saying," she felt the need to see what they were saying about her. "You need to stop looking at these things," Michael said, finding her at 3 in the morning scrolling through her phone feed. "This is hurting you." "I need to know what they're saying," she replied without taking her eyes off the screen. "No, you don't." He took the phone from her hand. "These people don't know you. Their opinion doesn't matter." "But everyone is seeing it," she began to cry. "Everyone in the country is seeing the worst humiliation of my life." Michael hugged her as she cried. There were no words of comfort that could erase what was happening. All he could do was be there. The problems kept piling up. The owner of the catering service showed up at Robert's house demanding payment. The decoration company threatened to sue for breach of contract. The party venue, which had been paid half, wanted the rest of the money or threatened to take legal action. "I'll pay for everything," Jessica told her father. "It's my responsibility." "It's not your responsibility," Robert argued. "It was Nathan who ran away." "But the contracts are in my name," she insisted. "And I have the inheritance money. That money is for your future." "What future, Dad?" she asked, her voice filled with bitterness. "My future ended in that church." "Don't talk like that," Susan joined the conversation. "You're 32. Your whole life is still ahead of you." "A life where everyone will recognize me as the woman who was left at the altar," Jessica said. "A life where every time I meet someone new, I'll wonder if they've seen the videos, if they're laughing at me inside." "People forget," Michael tried to comfort her. "In a few weeks, another scandal will come up, and no one will remember this." But Jessica didn't believe him. How could she forget when she herself couldn't forget? At work, the situation wasn't any better. Jessica worked as a marketing manager at a tech company, and when she returned to the office after a few days off, she felt everyone's eyes on her. "Jessica, I'm sorry for what happened," her boss, Rebecca, called her into her office on the very first day. "Thank you," Jessica said, just wanting to get back to her desk and bury herself in work. "If you need more time—" "I'm fine," she lied. "I need to work. I need to keep busy." But at lunch, sitting alone in the company break room, she overheard 2 colleagues talking in the hallway. "Did you see the videos?" one of them said. "I did." "Poor her," the other replied. But the tone wasn't one of true compassion. "I heard the groom was having an affair with her cousin." "Really? What a scandal." "Yeah, but think about it. For the guy to run away like that, she must have done something right." "True. No one runs away from their own wedding for no reason." Jessica closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears. Even people she considered friends were speculating, judging, creating narratives about her life. She left the break room without finishing her lunch and went to the bathroom, where she finally allowed herself to cry. When she returned to her desk, she had made a decision. She couldn't work there anymore. Not with everyone knowing, everyone looking, everyone talking. She wrote a resignation letter and handed it to Rebecca at the end of the day. "Jessica, are you sure?" Rebecca asked, concerned. "I know it's hard right now, but you're a great professional. Don't let this ruin your career." "I need some time," Jessica said. "I need to get away from all this." "What if instead of resigning, you take a leave of absence?" Rebecca suggested. 3 months, 6 months, whatever time you need. Your job will be here when you come back." Jessica thought for a moment. Maybe that was a better option. 3 months, she agreed. "I'll be back in 3 months." But deep down, she didn't know if she'd have the courage to return. At home, things weren't easy either. Amanda had finally stopped showing up at the door, but now she was sending letters, long letters asking for forgiveness, explaining her side of the story, begging for a chance to talk. Susan burned the letters without reading them, but Jessica had kept one. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, she opened it and read it. "Jessica, I know you don't want to hear anything I have to say. I know I hurt you in a way that might never be forgiven, but I need you to know that I didn't plan this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When I introduced Nathan to the family, I really liked him, and when he chose you instead of me, it hurt so much. You don't know how much it hurt. I was always second best in everything. The daughter my mother couldn't raise, the cousin who lived as a guest, the one who never had anything of her own. And then one more thing came along that was yours and not mine. Nathan. And I know this doesn't justify anything, but I started liking him even more because of the rejection. You know how you want something even more just because you can't have it? When he came to me 2 months later saying he'd made a mistake, that it was me he liked, I should have said no. I should have told you everything, but I didn't, because for the first time in my life I had something that was mine, something you didn't have. I know how that sounds. I know I'm selfish, jealous, terrible. You're right to hate me. I hate myself too, but I swear I never wanted things to go as far as a wedding. I thought he'd back out before, that he'd realize he couldn't do that to you, and when he didn't back out, I panicked. That's why I sent that message on the day of the wedding. I needed him to know that I wasn't going to let him do that to you, that if he really loved you, he wouldn't marry you knowing he was cheating on you with me and cheating on me with you. I didn't mean for him to run away. I meant for him to be honest. But he ran because he's a coward. And now you're suffering because of something I started. I'll never be able to forgive myself for this. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that, despite everything I did, I love you. You were always more than a cousin to me. You were the sister I never had. And I threw that away out of jealousy and selfishness. I'm sorry, Jessica, for everything. Amanda. Jessica folded the letter and put it away again. She didn't know how she felt after reading that. Part of her understood a little better what had happened, but understanding didn't mean forgiving. The weeks passed in a blur. Dr. William Harrison managed to gather enough evidence to sue Nathan for fraud. The other 3 victims agreed to testify. There were records of transfers, compromising messages, forged documents. "We have a strong case," the lawyer said in a meeting. "With luck, we can not only prevent him from getting anything of yours, but also make him return what he stole from the other women." "And Amanda?" Jessica asked. "Will she be sued too?" "She committed adultery, but she didn't commit any financial crime," Dr. William Harrison explained. "There's not much we can do legally." "I understand." The hearing was scheduled for 2 months from then. Nathan tried a few more times to get in touch, but Michael always blocked him before he could get close to Jessica. Then came the news that changed everything again. Amanda was pregnant. Susan got the call from her sister, Amanda's mother, who hadn't spoken to her for weeks because of the whole scandal. "Amanda is expecting a baby," her sister said. "Nathan's." Susan hung up and went to tell the family. Everyone was shocked. "Is she sure?" Robert asked. "She took 3 tests. They all tested positive," Susan said. "She's 2 months along." Jessica did the math in her head. 2 months. That meant Amanda had gotten pregnant 1 month before the wedding, while Nathan was still living with Jessica, planning the wedding with her. "Does he know?" Michael asked. "Apparently yes," Susan replied. "My sister said Amanda told him yesterday. He didn't even want to talk." "Of course not," Michael said bitterly. "He doesn't want a baby, he wants money." Jessica stayed silent. She didn't know how to feel about that news. Part of her felt a pang of jealousy, which was ridiculous considering she wanted nothing to do with Nathan. But there was something about knowing he was going to have a child with Amanda that stirred her in a strange way. "Are you okay?" Susan asked, sitting next to her daughter. "I am," Jessica said, but she wasn't. "It's just a lot. All of this is too much." In the following days, Amanda tried to make contact again, this time not through letters, but by showing up in person at Susan and Robert's house. Jessica was alone when the doorbell rang. Looking out the window, she saw Amanda standing at the door. Her cousin looked different, thinner, pale, with deep dark circles under her eyes. Against her better judgment, Jessica opened the door. "What do you want?" she asked, keeping the door partly closed. "I know I have no right to ask for anything," Amanda began, her voice trembling, "but I need to talk to you, please." Jessica hesitated. Every fiber of her being told her to shut the door. But there was something in Amanda's desperate look that made her pause. "5 minutes," she said, opening the door. Amanda entered and stood in the living room, as if she didn't know what to do with her hands. "I'm pregnant," she said. "I know. It's Nathan's." "I figured." Amanda took a deep breath. "He doesn't want the baby. Said I should take care of the situation." "And will you?" "No." Amanda placed a hand on her still flat stomach. "No matter how this baby was conceived, no matter how much I've messed up, I'm not giving up on him." Jessica said nothing. "I know you hate me," Amanda continued, "and you have every right to. But I needed you to know that I'm going to raise this baby alone. I won't ask Nathan for help. I won't ask the family for help. I'll manage." "Where will you live?" Jessica heard herself asking. "I'm renting a small room in Queens," Amanda said. "It's not much, but it's what I can afford with my store salary." Jessica remembered that Amanda worked as a salesperson in a clothing store, earning little more than minimum wage. "And Nathan, won't he help financially?" "He said the baby isn't his," Amanda laughed humorlessly. "Even though I have proof of all the times we met, he's denying it." "You can get a DNA test." "I can," Amanda agreed. "But what for? To force a man who doesn't want this baby to pay child support? I'd rather manage on my own than have to deal with him for the rest of my life." There was something admirable about that decision, however complicated the situation was. "Why are you telling me all this?" Jessica asked. "Because I need you to know that I understand," Amanda said. "I understand that what I did was unforgivable. I understand that I destroyed our relationship, destroyed the family's trust, destroyed everything. And I'll live with that for the rest of my life." Tears began to fall down Amanda's face. "But this baby isn't to blame for anything. And I don't want him to grow up hearing stories about how his mother is a terrible person. So I'm leaving, Jessica. I'm leaving Chicago, starting over somewhere else where no one knows me." "You're leaving?" Jessica repeated. "I'm going to Colorado. I have a friend in Denver who said she can put me up until I get settled," Amanda explained. "I'll look for a job there. I'll have the baby there. I'll restart my life there." "When?" "Next week." They remained silent for a long moment. "I don't forgive you," Jessica finally said. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive, but I don't wish any harm on you or your baby." "I know," Amanda wiped away her tears, "and I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted to say goodbye." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "One last thing," she said without turning around. "Nathan didn't love you, but he should have, because you're the most amazing person I know, and I hope one day you find someone who sees that." And then she left. Jessica stood in the empty room for a long time, processing the conversation. There was a strange sense of closure, even if incomplete. When Susan and Robert arrived home, she told them about Amanda's visit. "She's leaving," Susan repeated. Forever. She said she's starting over in Denver. And the baby. She's raising it alone. Susan sighed, sitting on the couch. Part of me wants to stay angry, she admitted. But another part just feels sorry. She made many mistakes, but she'll pay a high price for them. For her whole life, Robert agreed. In the following days, Jessica found herself thinking about Amanda, thinking about the baby that was coming, thinking about what it would be like to raise a child alone, thinking about all the wrong choices that led to that point. She also thought about herself, about how her life had changed drastically in a matter of weeks, about how different she was from the woman who had woken up excited on her wedding day. The depression had crept in subtly. At first it was just occasional bad days, days when she didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to do anything. But gradually those bad days became more frequent than the good ones. Michael was the first to notice. "Are you eating?" he asked during a visit, noticing how her clothes were looser. "I am," she lied. "Jessica, look at me." He held her face in his hands. "You need professional help." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Nobody would be fine after everything that happened," Michael said. "But you need to seek help. You need to talk to someone. I have you, I have Mom and Dad. And we're grateful you trust us," he said, "but we're not therapists. We don't know how to properly help you with what you're feeling." Jessica knew he was right, but admitting she needed help was admitting weakness, and she already felt too weak. It was Susan who scheduled the first therapy session for her. Dr. Margaret Wilson, a psychologist in her 60s with a cozy office in the Upper East Side. "I don't know if this will help," Jessica said in the first session, sitting in a comfortable armchair. "You don't need to know," Dr. Margaret said gently. "You just need to be willing to try." And then Jessica started talking. She talked about the wedding, about the betrayal, about the humiliation. She talked about the videos on social media, about the cruel comments, about how she couldn't go out anymore without feeling like everyone was staring at her. "It's like I've lost my identity," she said. "I'm no longer Jessica. I'm the woman who was left at the altar. That's all people see when they look at me." "And who is Jessica?" Dr. Margaret asked. "Without the wedding, without Nathan, without all of that. Who are you?" Jessica realized she didn't know how to answer. She had spent so much time being Nathan's girlfriend, then Nathan's fiancée, that she had forgotten who she was without him. "I don't know," she admitted, and began to cry. The weekly sessions became an anchor, a place where Jessica could speak without being judged, where she could explore her feelings without fear. "You feel guilty," Dr. Margaret observed in one of the sessions. "You feel like you should have noticed the signs." "I should have," Jessica insisted. "There were so many red flags. He always had excuses for everything. He was always broke, but never looked for a better job. He always had meetings on Thursdays. How did I not see it?" "Because you trusted him," Dr. Margaret said. "And trusting someone we love isn't a flaw, Jessica. It's something beautiful. The problem wasn't you trusting. The problem was him betraying that trust." Gradually, through the sessions, Jessica began to understand it wasn't her fault, that Nathan had chosen to lie, chosen to deceive, chosen to hurt. Those were his choices, not hers. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. But understanding in theory was different from accepting in practice. There were still nights when Jessica woke up at 3 in the morning, her heart racing, reliving the moment when Nathan had turned and run. There were still days when she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman she saw. It was on one of those difficult nights that she had the idea. She was scrolling through social media, something Dr. Margaret had asked her to stop doing, but that she couldn't completely avoid, and she saw a post from a woman she didn't know, but who shared a story similar to hers. The woman talked about how she had been deceived by her ex-husband, how it had taken years to recover, but how she now used her experience to help other women identify manipulative men. Jessica clicked on the profile and saw dozens of posts with tips, red flags, stories from other women. There was an entire community there of women who had been through similar situations and who supported each other. That's when she decided. She would tell her story. not to play the victim but to help other women avoid going through what she went through. She created an anonymous profile and wrote her first post. She told everything, from the beginning of the relationship to the day of the wedding. She didn't give names, didn't give details that could identify the people involved, but told the story honestly and rawly. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, there were hundreds of comments, women sharing their own stories, thanking her for having the courage to speak, saying they identified with her pain. "You started a blog?" Michael asked when she told him. "An anonymous profile," she corrected, "to share my story and help others." "How do you feel doing this?" "Strangely well," she admitted. "It's as if by turning my pain into something useful, it hurts a little less." In the following months, Jessica's profile grew. She began posting regularly, sharing not only her story, but also what she was learning in therapy, tips on how to identify toxic relationships, how to recover from emotional trauma. Jennifer, Kimberly, and Stephanie, the other victims of Nathan, also began to participate, sharing their perspectives. "It's therapeutic," Jennifer said at a meeting they scheduled, "being able to turn something bad into something that helps others. And look how many women are telling their stories." Kimberly pointed to the comments. "We're not alone in this." "We never were," Stephanie said. "The problem is that no one talks about it. Everyone feels ashamed, as if being deceived were a personal flaw." "But it's not," Jessica said with conviction. "And the more we talk about it, the easier it becomes for other women to realize they're not the only ones." The hearing with Nathan finally arrived. Dr. William had gathered enough evidence to prosecute for fraud against Jennifer, Kimberly, and Stephanie, and for attempted fraud against Jessica. "Are you ready?" the attorney asked before they entered the courtroom. The four women looked at each other and nodded. They were ready. Nathan was seated with his lawyer across the room. When he saw Jessica enter, he tried to make eye contact, but she looked straight ahead. He didn't even deserve her glance. The trial was long and exhausting. Each of the women had to give their testimony, sharing intimate details of how they were deceived. Nathan's lawyer tried to discredit each one, suggesting they had given the money voluntarily, that there was no proof of fraud. But Dr. William Harrison had done his homework. He presented messages, bank transfers, testimonies from close acquaintances. He presented Nathan's pattern of behavior, showing how he systematically sought out women with money, gained their trust, and then disappeared with everything he could. When it was Jessica's turn to testify, she was nervous. Her hands trembled as she sat in the witness chair. "Can you tell us what happened, please?" Dr. Harrison asked. Jessica took a deep breath and began. She told of how she met Nathan, about the 3 years of dating, about the engagement. She told about her grandmother's inheritance, about how Nathan had become more interested after that, about how he had suggested marriage soon after. "And on the wedding day?" Dr. Harrison asked. "What happened?" "He ran," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "The priest asked the traditional question, and he just turned and ran out of the church." "And did you know why?" "Not at the time." She looked directly at Nathan for the first time. "But I found out later. He was having an affair with my cousin, and he planned to use my inheritance money to pay off debts with loan sharks." "Objection!" Nathan's lawyer stood up. "That is speculation." "Sustained," the judge said. "Stick to the facts you can prove, Miss Parker." "I have the messages," she said, "messages between him and my cousin, where he explicitly talks about gaining access to my inheritance through marriage." Dr. Harrison presented the printed messages. The judge examined them carefully. When Jessica stepped down from the witness stand, she felt strangely light. She had spoken her truth. She had faced Nathan. She had stood her ground. The trial lasted 3 days. In the end, the judge withdrew to deliberate. The four women waited in the room outside, nervous but hopeful. When the judge returned, they stood up. "After analyzing all the evidence presented," he began, "and hearing all the testimonies, I conclude that the defendant, Nathan Miller Thompson, acted fraudulently and with the intent to cause financial harm to the victims." Jessica felt her legs weaken. Michael, who was sitting behind her, placed a hand on her shoulder for support. "Therefore, I declare the defendant guilty of 3 counts of fraud and 1 attempted fraud. The sentence will be 4 years of imprisonment, to be served under semi-open conditions, in addition to the return of all money stolen from the victims, with monetary correction and interest. Nathan turned pale. His lawyer began talking about an appeal, but the judge banged the gavel. "This session is adjourned." Outside the courtroom, the 4 women hugged, crying. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief, of justice, of closure. "We did it," Jennifer said, wiping her tears. "We did," Kimberly repeated, smiling for the first time in a long while. "This won't give back the time we lost," Stephanie said, "but at least he'll pay for what he did. And other women will be safe from him for a while," Jessica added. In the months that followed, Jessica's life began to find a new rhythm. She continued with therapy, continued with the anonymous profile that now had over 50,000 followers, and started thinking about the future. Her work leave was coming to an end, but she didn't know if she wanted to go back. So much time had been spent working on something that didn't truly fulfill her just because it was expected. It was Dr. Margaret who planted the seed. "What would you really like to do?" she asked in one session. "If money weren't an issue, if others' opinions didn't matter, what would you do?" Jessica thought for a long moment. "I think I'd like to help other women," she finally said, in a more concrete way. "The profile is good, but I wanted to do more." "Like what?" "I don't know," Jessica admitted. "Maybe study law? To be able to help women who are in situations similar to what I went through." "That would be amazing," Dr. Margaret smiled. "You have money saved from the inheritance. You have time. You have motivation. Why not? Why not, really?" That night, Jessica researched law schools in Chicago. She found one that offered night classes, perfect for those who wanted to study while working. She talked to her family about the idea. "Law?" Robert repeated. "Are you sure?" "I am," she said with more conviction than she had felt in months. "I want to be able to help other women legally. I want to learn how to identify fraud, build cases, and bring justice." "Then you have our full support," Susan said, hugging her daughter. "We're proud of you." Michael just smiled. "I knew you'd bounce back," he said. "I always knew." Jessica took the entrance exam and passed. She started college in August, 6 months after the wedding that never happened. On the first day of class, she sat in the back row and looked around. There were other students of all ages, all with their own stories, their own motivations. She was no longer the woman left at the altar. She was Jessica Parker, law student, survivor, fighter. The first months of college were challenging. It had been 10 years since she had studied for exams, and going back to absorbing so much new content was tiring. But it was a good, productive tiredness. She was building something. The anonymous profile continued to grow. She now did weekly live streams, where she talked with followers about toxic relationships, warning signs, and how to recover from trauma. Jennifer, Kimberly, and Stephanie often participated. It was in one of these live streams that a follower shared a story that seemed familiar. A charming man with no money, always with excuses, interested in women with resources. "Are you sure you're talking about the same man?" Jessica asked, feeling a chill down her spine. "Nathan Miller Thompson," the follower said. "I just found out he's trying to scam me too." But Nathan was in prison. How could he be scamming anyone? "He sent me messages on his phone," the follower explained. "Said he was going through some problems, but as soon as he sorted them out, we could start a real relationship." Jessica ended the live stream and immediately called Dr. William. "Does Nathan have access to a phone in prison?" she asked. "Officially, no," the lawyer replied. "But you know how these things work. There's always a way." "He's trying to scam another woman," Jessica told him about the follower. "We need to do something." "I'll contact the prison warden," Dr. William promised. "And can you ask that woman to come here? I want to document everything." The follower, named Caroline, agreed to file a formal complaint. With the evidence she had, Dr. William managed to get Nathan's privileges revoked. But the incident showed something important. Nathan wasn't going to stop. Even in prison, even after being convicted, he would keep trying to scam women. "We need to do something bigger," Jessica told the other 3 victims at a meeting. We need to warn more women, reach more people. How? Kimberly asked. You already have a large profile, you do live streams, you share stories. But you're still anonymous, Jessica said. And maybe it's time to change that. The other women looked at her in surprise. Are you thinking about revealing your identity? Jennifer asked. I am, Jessica replied. The wedding videos are still out there anyway. People already know the story, even if they don't know I'm behind the profile. Maybe it's time to put the two together. That's a big decision, Stephanie said. Are you sure? Jessica thought for a long moment. There were risks. It would mean opening up her life even more, exposing herself to more judgment, more comments. But it would also mean being able to reach more women, have more impact. I am, she finally said. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of feeling ashamed of something that wasn't my fault. She talked to Dr. Margaret about the decision. How are you feeling about this? The therapist asked. Scared, Jessica admitted, but also empowered. It's as if by publicly owning the story, I'm taking back control of it. Exactly, Dr. Margaret smiled. For a long time, this story was about what was done to you. Now you're turning it into something you're doing for the world. Exactly. Jessica planned the reveal carefully. She wrote a long text telling the whole story, from the beginning to where she was now. She included before and after photos, shared her healing process, talked about therapy, about law school, about how she turned her pain into purpose. The night before posting, she reread everything several times. It was vulnerable, it was honest, it was real, it was her. She clicked publish and closed the app. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the post had thousands of comments. Most were supportive, from women thanking her for her courage, from people sharing their own stories. But there were also negative comments. People saying she was playing the victim, that she was seeking attention, that she should have moved on from all that. Michael was with her when she read the negative comments. Don't pay attention to that, he said. For every person who speaks badly, there are 10 that you're helping. And he was right. The private messages she received were from women thanking her, saying her story had helped them identify signs in their own relationships, that it had given them the courage to leave toxic situations. One woman wrote, I was dating a man who seemed perfect, but after reading your story and seeing the signs you pointed out, I realized he was doing the same thing to me. I ended it today. Thank you for saving me from years of suffering. It was for messages like that it was worth it. The first year of college went by quickly. Jessica excelled in civil law and family law, areas she intended to pursue. She made friends, joined study groups, started thinking about what her path would be after graduation. It was in a criminal law class that she met Professor Richard Bennett. He was an expert in economic crimes and fraud, and when Jessica introduced herself after class and told him a bit of her story, he became interested. Have you ever thought about interning at a law firm specializing in that? He asked. I'm still in my first year, she said. I don't know if I can intern yet. There's a firm I know that might be interested, he said. They work specifically with cases of fraud and financial deception. Let me make a call. A week later, Jessica had an interview scheduled. The Davidson and Williams firm was in a modern building on Fifth Avenue. Attorney Sarah Williams, one of the partners, personally greeted her. So you're Jessica Parker, she said with a smile. Professor Richard told me about you. And I've been following your work on social media too. Do you know it's me? Jessica asked, surprised. When you revealed your identity, I made the connection, Attorney Sarah explained. And I was impressed with the work you're doing. We're always in need of people passionate about justice. The interview felt more like a conversation. They talked about cases the firm had handled, about Jessica's vision for the future, about how she wanted to help other women. The work here isn't easy, Attorney Sarah warned. You'll see many difficult stories, many women in complicated situations. You need emotional strength to handle this. I have it, Jessica said with conviction, and if I don't, I'll seek it. I go to therapy, I have a strong support network. I know how to take care of my mental health. Great, Attorney Sarah extended her hand. Welcome to the team. Jessica started her internship in February of the following year. Her first case was helping a woman who had been deceived by a fake investor. The story was different from hers, but the elements were the same. A charming man, empty promises, betrayed trust, stolen money. How can you do this? The client, Mrs. Margaret, a 68-year-old woman, asked, How can you listen to these stories all the time? Because I went through it, Jessica said honestly. And I know it's possible to survive. I know it's possible to recover and use the experience for something good. You went through this? Mrs. Margaret asked, surprised, and Jessica told her story, not with sensationalist details, but with the journey of pain and overcoming. And she saw in Mrs. Margaret's eyes something she had seen in her own eyes months ago, hope. The months passed. Jessica immersed herself in work and studies. She continued with her social media profile, now with over 150,000 followers. She continued with the weekly live streams. She continued helping women identify and escape toxic relationships, and gradually, without realizing it, she became happy again. Not the same naive happiness as before, but a deeper happiness, based on purpose and growth. It was on a Thursday afternoon, exactly 2 years after the wedding that never happened, that she had a revelation. She was working on a particularly difficult case where a client had been deceived by her own son. It was a sad, complicated story, full of layers. And when Jessica was reviewing the documents, she noticed something. She hadn't thought about Nathan all day. She hadn't thought about the wedding, the humiliation, the betrayal. She had been so immersed in her work, so focused on helping that client, that there was no room left for those painful memories. She smiled, not because she had forgotten, she would never forget completely, but because finally the memories no longer had power over her. That night at home, she looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was different from the one who had walked up the altar 2 years earlier. There were scars, yes, but there was also strength. There was wisdom. There was purpose. She picked up her phone and opened the profile. There was a message from a follower saying she had just left an abusive relationship and was scared about the future. Jessica smiled and started typing a response. Because that's what she did now. She took her pain and turned it into help for others. And it was in this work of helping others that she found her own healing. 3 years after the wedding that never happened, Jessica was at her law school graduation. The whole family was there. Susan and Robert in the front row, Michael filming everything, even some cousins she had reconnected with after the distance caused by the scandal. Amanda wasn't there. She had gone through with her plan to move to Colorado and, from what Susan had heard through her sister, was doing well. She had a 2-year-old son, worked at a store, and was rebuilding her life away from the past. Jessica no longer felt anger, just a melancholic acceptance that some things couldn't be fixed, only accepted and moved on from. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage to receive her diploma. The audience applauded, and she looked at her family, at the co-workers from the office who had come, at the friends she had made in college. This was her life now, and it was good. After graduation, Dr. William Harrison appeared with some news. Nathan is being released, he said. Exemplary behavior, reduced sentence. Jessica waited for the panic, but it didn't come. Okay, she said simply. Okay, Dr. Harrison repeated, surprised. I thought you'd be more upset. He has no power over me anymore, Jessica explained. He may be physically free, but I am emotionally free, and that's what matters. And it was true, Nathan's shadow no longer frightened her. She was hired permanently by the Davidson and Williams firm after graduation. Her first case as a licensed attorney was representing a young woman who had been deceived by an online scammer. You can do this, attorney Sarah Williams said before the hearing. You were born for this, and Jessica won the case. She saw the relief on her client's face when the judge ruled in her favor. She felt the same satisfaction she had felt when she won her own case against Nathan. Justice. That's what it was all about. 2 months later, in a routine hearing, Jessica was reviewing documents when she bumped into someone. Sorry, she said automatically, looking up. No problem, the man replied, smiling. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore a suit and carried a document case. "Are you an attorney too?" he asked. "I am," she answered. "You?" "Yes, Mark Anthony." He extended his hand. "I work in labor law." "Jessica," she shook his hand, "civil and family law." They talked for a few minutes before both needed to go into their respective hearings. It was a brief, professional conversation, but there was an ease in their dialogue that Jessica hadn't felt in years. She didn't think much about it until the following week, when she bumped into him again at the same courthouse. "We have to stop meeting like this," he joked. "I guess we frequent the same places." She smiled. "Want to grab coffee after the hearings?" he asked. "Nothing serious, just two attorneys talking about cases." Jessica hesitated for just a second before agreeing. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinner the next week, and before she knew it, she was talking to Mark about things beyond work. "You're Jessica Parker," he said during one of their meetings. "From the case that went viral, right?" Jessica felt her stomach tighten, expecting judgment, morbid curiosity, invasive questions. "I am," she said, ready to defend herself. "I follow your work," he said. "What you do, helping women who are victims of scams and abusive relationships. It's admirable." "You follow it?" "My sister went through something similar," Mark explained. "Your profile helped her find the courage to leave the relationship. So when I found out you were the same person, I was impressed." "Thank you," Jessica said, genuinely touched. "No, thank you," he said, "for turning your pain into something that helps others. Not everyone has that strength." It was the first time someone saw her first for her work, and only afterward for the tragedy that had defined her life for so long. They continued meeting, always in public places, always in conversations that flowed naturally. Mark was different from Nathan in every way. He was transparent about his life, his finances, his goals. He respected her boundaries without question. He truly listened to her. "You're falling for him," Michael observed when Jessica mentioned Mark for the 5th time in a week. "Maybe," she admitted, "but I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of making the same mistake. Of trusting the wrong person again." Michael took his sister's hand. "You're not the same person who trusted Nathan," he said. "You've grown, learned, become stronger. And if you're scared, take it slow, there's no rush." And that's what she did. She took it slow. She got to know Mark gradually, without hurry, without pressure. And to her surprise, she found no red flags. She found no strange excuses, no lies, no manipulation. "I was married before," Mark told her during one of their dates. "We ended things 3 years ago, amicably. We're still friends. I can introduce you to her if you want, so you can see there's no drama." And he did. His ex-wife, Emily, was a kind woman who worked as a teacher. They had divorced because they wanted different things in life, but they still got along. "He's a good man," Emily told Jessica. "We didn't work out as a couple, but he was always honest and respectful. You can trust him." It took 8 months for Jessica to agree to date Mark officially, and even then, she was clear about her boundaries. "I need time," she said. "I need to go slow, and if at any point you're not comfortable with that, I'll understand." "I'm comfortable with whatever you need," Mark replied. "There's no rush. We'll go at your pace." And they did. They built a relationship based on trust, open communication, and mutual respect. It wasn't perfect, no relationship is, but it was healthy. It was real. Michael approved after meeting Mark in person. "He seems nice," her brother said, "and more importantly, he makes you smile in a way I haven't seen in years." Susan and Robert liked him too. "Does he treat you well?" Susan asked, always protective. "He does," Jessica answered. "Very well." 5 years after the wedding that never happened, Jessica was at a conference on women's rights. She had been invited to speak about her work, helping victims of romance scams. On stage, looking out at an audience of hundreds of women, she told her story. Not in the sensational way the viral videos had portrayed it, but the real way. The pain, the shame, the rebuilding, the overcoming. "I won't lie and say it was easy," she said into the microphone. "The first few months were the hardest of my life. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. There were days I doubted I could get through it." She paused, looking at the women in the audience. Many had tears in their eyes, clearly seeing their own stories reflected in hers. But I did get through it, with help from family, therapy and purpose, and today, 5 years later, I can say that horrible day at the church was in a way the best day of my life. There was a murmur of surprise in the audience, because if I had married that man, I would have wasted years of my life in a fake relationship. I would have been deceived, robbed, destroyed, but instead I found out the truth in time. It hurt a lot, but it saved me from something much worse. And more than that experience gave me purpose. It led me to study law, to work helping other women, to use my pain for something productive. So yes, it was horrible, but it was also transformative. The audience applauded, many women standing up. After the talk, dozens of them came to speak with Jessica, to thank her, to share their own stories. "You inspired me to go back to school," one said. "You helped me leave an abusive relationship," said another. "You showed me it's possible to start over," said a third. And in that moment, Jessica knew with absolute certainty that she had taken the right path. Mark was in the audience, watching everything. When they finally managed to meet after all the conversations, he hugged her. "I'm so proud of you," he said. "Thank you for being here," she replied. "I'll always be here," he promised. And she believed him, because she had learned to distinguish empty promises from real commitments. 6 years after the wedding that never happened, Jessica was in her office when she received an unexpected email. It was from Amanda. "Jessica, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I needed to tell you something. I've been in Denver for 6 years. My son, Michael, is 4.5. I work at a school now, no longer at a store. I'm studying education on weekends. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable. I'm writing because I saw you at the conference. I was there, sitting in the back, listening to your speech, and I cried. I cried because I saw how much you've grown, how much you've transformed, and I cried because I know part of your pain was caused by me. I don't expect you to reply to this email. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be a better person, for myself, for my son, and as a late way to honor the friendship we once had. You were always amazing, Jessica, even when I couldn't see it through my envy and selfishness. And seeing you now, strong and powerful, helping so many women, makes me feel a little less guilty. Because despite everything I did, you found your way. I hope you're very happy. You deserve it. Amanda. Jessica read the email 3 times, then she closed the laptop and stared out the window for a long time. She didn't reply to the email. Maybe one day she would, maybe not. But she felt a sense of peace. Amanda was moving on with her life, trying to be better, and Jessica was moving on with hers. They didn't need to be in each other's lives for both to be okay. That evening she told Mark about the email. "How do you feel?" he asked. "At peace," she replied. "Finally at peace with all of that." "You're amazing," he said, kissing her forehead. "I'm not amazing," she corrected. "I'm just someone who refused to let pain define me." 7 years after the wedding that never happened, Mark proposed to Jessica. It was different in every possible way from the first proposal. There was no big production, no expensive ring, no unrealistic expectations. They were at home on an ordinary Friday night watching a movie. "I have a question," Mark said suddenly. "What?" Jessica asked, without taking her eyes off the screen. "Marry me?" Jessica turned to look at him, thinking it was a joke, but he was serious, holding a simple box with a delicate ring. "Mark, you don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "I know marriage is a complicated word for you. If you prefer, we can just continue as we are, or have a symbolic ceremony, or just do the civil part, or whatever you want." "Mark," she repeated, taking his face in her hands. "Yes." "Yes?" he repeated, surprised. "Yes, I'll marry you," she smiled. "At a courthouse, no party, no videos, no drama. Just you, me, and the people we love." "That's all I want," he said, placing the ring on her finger. They got married 3 months later in an intimate ceremony at the courthouse. Only Michael, Susan, Robert, Mark's ex-wife, who had become Jessica's friend, and some close friends were present. There was no elaborate wedding dress. Jessica wore a simple white dress. There was no bouquet, there was no church, and it was perfect. After signing the documents, they left the courthouse as husband and wife. Michael hugged his sister. "You made it," he whispered. "You found your happy ending." "It's not an ending," she corrected. "It's a new beginning," and it truly was. 10 years after the wedding that never happened, Jessica was sitting in her office. She had opened her own practice specializing in helping women who were victims of romance scams and abusive relationships. On the wall behind her desk, there was a photo of her on law school graduation day. Next to it, a photo of her simple wedding with Mark. And between the two, a framed quote that she read every day. "The scars prove that you were stronger than what tried to hurt you." Her phone rang. It was a new client asking for help. Another woman who had been deceived, another story of pain and betrayal. Jessica picked up her notepad and started writing down the details. "Breathe," she told the client. "I know it seems impossible right now, but you will get through this. I promise." "How can you be so sure?" the client asked between sobs. "Because I went through it too," Jessica answered. "Jessica, and I'm on the other side. Stronger, wiser, happier, and you'll get there too." After hanging up, Jessica looked out the window. Outside, life went on. People walked on the sidewalks, cars passed by, the sun shone. She thought about everything that had happened since that day at the church. The pain, the humiliation, the rebuilding, the difficult choices, the dark days, the small victories that gradually became big ones. She thought about Nathan, who she didn't even know where he was anymore. Not because she had forgotten, but because he simply wasn't relevant in her life anymore. She thought about Amanda, raising her son in Colorado, building a new life. She thought about all the women she had helped over the years, the legal victories, the emotional reconnections, the transformations she witnessed. And she thought about herself, about the woman she was 10 years ago, naive and confident, thinking she knew everything about love and relationships, and about the woman she was now, wise and cautious, but also more open and genuine. She wasn't the same person, and she thanked God for that. The phone rang again. Another client, another story, another chance to turn pain into healing. Jessica answered with a smile, because this was her life now, and she wouldn't change it for anything. End of story. And you? What did you think of this story? Did Jessica make the right choices by turning her pain into purpose? Have you ever experienced something similar or know someone who went through this? Tell us in the comments with sincere words. We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for following along. Don't forget to leave your like and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories.